Hello, everybody. Today is February 22nd to 2024. We are working on block 7 of the sampler so long, and I'm just doing it a little bit different today. Tell me in the comments below if this format works for you, or I can switch it back to the other. We are working on the sampler so along with Rita's Bruce, Mona did what, and Rowena. We do go live on YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Monday nights. And it could be in either Mona's channel or Rita's channel or my channel. Normally, we announce where we're going to be, and we hope that you come and join us or you watch the replay. Now, it is 4 a.m. in the morning, and this is the best time for me to quilt because I do work during the day. I do work from home long hours, and many of you have very busy lives, whether it is taking care of your home, working, taking care of loved ones. We all have busy lives, and you want to be able to learn how to sew and quilt. And so we just kind of carve out a piece of time for us. And we are going to create in the space that we have. When I first started out, it was a little corner in our living room because I wasn't quite sure if I would enjoy this craft. I have since expanded it, moved a couple of times into different locations, and I'm currently working out of my home office. So it is split, and my corner, my sewing corner, is actually very tiny since it's a shared space. Enough about that. So we're going to do some ugly sewing. This is what it looks like. I'm still in my PJs. My hair is up. Comfortable. I like to sew when I'm comfortable. As I've stated, we are working on block 7, which is the basic block. We did choose Delaware Quilts Autumn Leaves, and I'll put the link for the block on the description portion of this video. However, I do have an EQ8 program, and what I tend to do with the basic blocks is I just go ahead, print it out, make some notes so that I can share the cutting instructions with you and hopefully make things a little easier. Sometimes the written instructions are more geared towards sewists who have a little they've had some time sewing. And so we are teaching you the basic blocks. We're going to do it a little bit different, as I mentioned, because we want to progress in our sewing. So you are not going to see me sew. If you want to see how that 1/4 inch is sewn, the blocks are sewn together, you can view some of my other videos for blocks 1 through 6. I'm going to be off camera when I sew, and that would be a good time for you to pause the video and sew your blocks up too. So I'm going to change angles. I do have let me go ahead and change angles. I'm continuing to use my 12.5 graded grids ruler that I'm going to be utilizing for the whole block series. I do have a rotary cutter. Some pins if needed, a fabric marking tool, my fabric, and my pattern. So let me go ahead and give you some cutting sizes. We are only going to be using 2 different fabrics, light and dark. If you feel confident and you want to mix this block up, go for it. Your block, your quilt, you do what you like. If you want to make every block different, that's up to you. As I've mentioned, we are using a dark and a light. On our dark, we are going to cut 2 5-inch squares, and we are going to cut 4 4.5-inch squares. For our light fabric, we are going to cut and grab them together. 2 5-inch squares, 1 4.5-inch square, and 2 4-inch squares. So we are going to set some of these units aside, working only with our 2 5-inch squares from each color, from the dark and the light. We are going to make half square triangles. And we've done this several times before. I heard one person say on Rita's channel, and that she does not like half square triangles, but these are big half square triangles. We're only making 2 sets. So we're going to go ahead and draw that diagonal line on both blocks. And if you need to pin to keep these together, you could go ahead and do that. I am going to go to the sewing machine and get that sewn up. This is a good opportunity for you to pause it and take your pieces to the sewing machine and meet me back here when we're done. All right, so I have sewn on either side of my diagonal line, and at this point I like to go ahead and just relax those seams by giving it a little press. And you do not have to do that. That's an option. But I like to just relax those seams so that when we press these blocks out, they are nice and flat. And I'm just cutting on the diagonal line that we made or between those 2 seams. And so we're left with blocks, and oops, I did not sew this one correctly. So that is no problem. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to fix this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rip that seam, and I am going to take a 1/4 inch on that line. I'm just going to reverse them. Let me correct that, and I will be right back. Okay, so I corrected my mistake. Happens to all of us. And now everything is the way it should be. We have 4 half square triangles or HSTs with a dark and a light. I did go ahead and press mine open since I was at the sewing machine fixing my mistake. Now what we're going to do is we are going to trim our block to 4.5. We want to make certain that it is nice and even. So we're just going to clean up our block. I'll show you one. Making certain the diagonal line on our ruler is laying on our seam line. And everything is just matching up. Like so. And I am going to go ahead and continue to trim my 3 remaining HSTs. Okay, so we have our 4 half square triangles completed. We are going to set that aside, and we are going to work on our stem unit. And the stem unit is a little different. So we are going to take this step by step. We are taking our 4-inch blocks and we are going to make a diagonal line from corner to corner on the back side. Don't do me, the back side of the light. And this step is where pinning will come in handy. So I will get my pins. Some of my scraps out of the way. You're going to take your 4.5-inch dark block, laying your fabric corner to corner on one corner, and we are going to pin right there, making certain everything is even and everything is aligned. You're going to sew on the diagonal. So I don't know if you can see that. You are going to sew on your diagonal line, and we will be right back. So I have sewn on my diagonal line, and when I open it up, it is going to look like that. For now, I am just going to stick a pin in it to keep that out of the way. I will put the other block on the opposite line so that it looks like this on the opposite corner. Stick another pin in there to keep it together, and you are going to sew on the diagonal line going down. Right, so I have sewn on the right on the diagonal line that I made earlier, and when I open it up, it looks like this. I want to pull it back and make sure that there is coverage all around. Okay, at this point, you can go ahead and trim a 1/4 inch away from that seam line we just drew, that we just sewn. That aside, and you do want to make sure that you're flipping your fabric over so you don't make any accidental cuts and have to repeat this process. So we're going to save those for another scrap project. And now we have a unit that looks like this. And I am going to set my seams and sew, press it open. And my block does look a little wonky, and that is fine. And if your stems look a little big or uneven, that's fine. As you learn how to do this step, you will improve and your accuracy will improve. I am just going to trim this up to 4.5. And it is much easier for me to trim when I'm standing because I'm short. And we are ready to assemble our blocks. Let me go ahead and move some of this over. And we are going to assemble our blocks. So we're going to get the remaining pieces of our dark fabric. We should have 3 4.5 squares remaining and 1 light 4.5 square. And we are just going to assemble the unit. And I'm going to try my best to do this backwards. So we have a unit coming this way, this, this, this. We're going to put our light unit this way, and it's really hard for me to see backwards. So I'm looking in the camera. Tell you what, move some of this over. I'm going to do it this way where I can see it, and I will turn it around. And that will just make it a little bit easier for me. So turn my mat around, and I don't know if you can see this, but now we're working with a 9 patch. We're working with a 9 patch, and we are simply going to sew each row together. Sewing our rows down, and then once that's sewn, we are going to connect these rows. So I will be right back. All right, we have 3 rows sewn together. We are now just going to sew that row and that row. And at this point, you can just finger press your seams with the middle going towards the inside. And that will just help your seams to nest. When you're sewing those rows together, remember, if pinning helps, go ahead and pin it. So we just want to take a good look at it, make certain everything is the way we want it to look. And I am going to sew all my rows. All right, and there you have it. There is your autumn leaves or your maple block. We've completed block 7 blocks for this sampler sew along, and we are getting there. We just have a few more blocks to go with a total of 20 blocks, and then we will help you assemble your blocks together to make a quilt. We will even show you how to machine quilt it, and that's going to be an adventure. Again, sew on what you have. If you have a small sewing machine from the box store, You can make beautiful blocks with it. You just have to get to know your machine, following the instructions, and finding that 1/4 inch seam or that scant 1/4 inch seam. Just be consistent with your sewing. If your blocks are coming out at 12 inches, make all your blocks at 12 inches. It's okay. It is going to work. We are using an unfinished block of 12 and a half, and that is so that when they are all sewn together, the blocks will finish in the quilt at 12 inches. If yours is coming out at 10 inches, it's just going to finish a little smaller, but it's still going to be a quilt. It's still going to be usable. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Leave me a comment in the comment section. I will put a description or the link for the Delaware Quilt Autumn Leaves. But leave me a comment if you have any questions. We are having a Zoom sew along. You will need to email me to be a part of that, whether you are sewing along with us or you just want to join a group of women to chat and sew. And that will be held on March 3rd at 2:30 in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time. But as always, I hope you're blessed, that you be kind and you keep sewing. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.